Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the 11th lecture of this course, which is named Chemistry. The code for this particular course is CH101 for the odd semester and CH201 for the even semester. This is Jish Chakraborty from Department of Chemistry, and you're watching the part 3 of use of free energy in chemical equilibrium. And this is the 11th lecture of this course, Chemistry. Okay. Now, as you already know that we people have come across 10 lectures, out of which the last two lectures, that is lecture number 9 and lecture number 10, belongs to this particular module and belongs to the same topic also. The topic also, you know that it is use of free energy in chemical equilibria, right? Now, I have already discussed with you multiple times that this particular topic is very unusual, and also you people, I think you have never heard about this particular chapter name, use of free energy in chemical equilibria, because this particular topic is nothing but a combination of thermodynamics as well as electrochemistry. Okay. Now, we have been doing thermodynamics from lecture number 9, and in this lecture also we'll be doing part from thermodynamics only, right? So what we have seen in lecture number 9 and 10, let's have a quick recap about those things so that we can have a short idea that what we are going to see in this particular lecture. Without prerequisite knowledge and proper knowledge about what we have already done, will not be able to complete 100% of this particular lecture, right? So let us discuss that. In the 9th lecture, that is part 1 of use of free energy in chemical equilibria, we people have seen what the basics of thermodynamics are. Now, whenever the basics of thermodynamics, whenever this thing comes into question, we see two particular terms. One is system, another is surroundings. Okay. Now, the system is something which is under investigation, and surrounding is something other than the system. Okay. Together they constitute universe, and they are separated by a boundary, right? Also, these boundaries of two types, dithermal and adiabatic, we people have discussed. I'm not explaining right now because we have done it previously. Okay. And the system is again of three types: open, closed, and isolated, right? We have discussed using the example of a cup of hot tea, right? So more or less in that particular lecture we have come across thermodynamic properties, thermodynamic functions, thermodynamic processes, right? Several things we people have done. Also, in that particular lecture only we have seen what is first law of thermodynamics and what is internal energy, what is change in internal energy. Okay, these are very important terms because first law is nothing but just like the law of conservation of energy, and the application of first law is actually called the law of internal energy because it deals with internal energy. And in the second lecture, that is part 2 of use of free energy in chemical equilibrium, basically it is lecture number 10, but it is the second lecture if we consider use of free energy in chemical equilibrium. Okay, part 2, right? Now in that particular lecture, first we started with enthalpy. Now this enthalpy is nothing but the application of first law of thermodynamics. Okay, enthalpy is nothing but application of first law of thermodynamics. Similarly, entropy is application of second law of thermodynamics, which we'll be seeing later on. Okay. Now, after enthalpy, we have seen applications of enthalpy in chemical reactions, which includes endothermic processes and exothermic process, or you can say endothermic reaction, endothermic, exothermic reaction. Okay. Now we have seen clearly what is endo, what is exothermic reactions. We have seen the graphs. We have discussed that in which of the cases the products are stable and which of the cases products are unstable. Okay. Furthermore, in that particular lecture only, we have seen what is heat capacity and what is the relation between Cp and Cv. Also, we have seen what are the different types of heat capacities are, right? So this was all about our prerequisite knowledge. Now, this is lecture 3 of use of free energy in chemical equilibrium. Welcome to this part 3 of the chapter, and let us go to the lecture highlights. So in this lecture, as you people can see, we will see the details about reversible and irreversible reactions, and we'll see what is work done in isothermal reversible process for expansion of an ideal gas. Also, we will discuss certain numericals that comes within this particular topic, right? Now you people may be thinking that reversible irreversible process we have discussed previously. That was just the beginning. Okay, today in this lecture we'll see the details. So as you can see, this is the reversible and irreversible processes, right? Now, a reversible process is a process in which reaction can be reversed by inducing small change to some property of the system by surroundings without increasing entropy. See, this type of details were there in the first lecture. Answer is no, because this is actually the correct explanation of reversible and irreversible process. Okay. See, the reversible process is the one whose direction can be reversed. That's why the name is reversible, right? By inducing infinite similarly small change to some property of the system. So what we are going to do, we are going to alter any of the property of the system. Now the question will arise, what do you mean by properties of thermodynamic system? Properties of thermodynamic system is of 4 types. First one is pressure, second one is temperature, third one is volume, fourth one is number of moles or N, right? PVTN. Okay, you know it very well. It may happen that you have forgotten, but you know it very well, right? So I'm not going into the details here. Okay, so if a reversible process is the one which can be reversed at any time, now this reverse or this revision will occur using by inducing some change to some property of the system, okay, via surroundings, right? And this particular whatever alteration you are doing, it must not change the entropy of the system, it must not increase the entropy of the system. Okay, throughout the entire reversible process, the system is in thermodynamic equilibrium with the surrounding. Now this particular sentence is very important, because see, if something is in equilibrium, then that only can be reversed, otherwise not. Okay, for example, suppose we are growing older day by day. We are growing older day by day. Is this process reversible or irreversible? Just think a bit. Is this reversible or irreversible? Answer is, this is irreversible. If you want to be class 5, or if you want to be of age of 1 years, it is not possible, because growth is irreversible, right? And while we are growing, we are not maintaining any equilibrium with anything. If we maintain thermal equilibrium, then it may so happen that our growth can be reversed, okay, but it is not possible, right? So throughout this entire reversible process, the system will be in thermodynamic equilibrium with the surroundings, right? Since it would take an infinite amount of time for the reversible process to finish, perfectly reversible processes are impossible in a reversible cycle. The system and its surroundings will be returned to their original state if the forward cycle is followed by the reverse cycle. Okay, so as you know that ideal processes never happen, or they are very hard to found. In a similar manner, reversible processes, they will take infinitely amount of time to finish, so practically they're impossible, right? No reversible processes are there on earth practically. And if a reversible process is done twice, so we know this funda from the organic chemistry, that inversion of inversion is retention. Means if you just come if you do the reaction twice, then you will go back to reversible reaction definitely. Then you will reverse the cycle and you will go back to the initial state. Okay, and this was all about the reversible process, the first 3 points. Now let us go to the irreversible process. You can see irreversible process on the other hand can be described as the process where infinite changes are made, therefore the system is not at all in equilibrium. At the same point, in an irreversible cycle, system will be in the same state, but surroundings are permanently changed after it cycle. What does it means? It means that irreversible processes are everywhere. It is happening everywhere, with you, with me, with everyone else, right? And here finite changes are made. System is not at equilibrium through the process. Okay, no equilibrium is maintained. At the same point, in an irreversible cycle, the system will be in the same state, but the surroundings are permanently changed after its cycle. So system will be normal, but surroundings will change. Okay, so reversion cannot be, reversion is not possible basically, right? So let us go to the next slide. Okay, so reversible irreversible process is over. Let us do some numericals. Okay, so before numericals we have to derive the formula, then only we can do the numerical. Okay, so how we can do that? This is our very old and very what I can say very uh, close to heart, right? Derivation in thermodynamics, which is work done in isothermal reversible expansion of an ideal gas, right? Very close derivation you've done in class 11 also. So let us see how it works. See, in an ideal gas, all the collisions between the molecules or atoms are perfectly elastic and no intermolecular force of attraction exists in the ideal gas because the molecules of an ideal gas move so fast that they are so far away from each other that they do not interact at all. Now here, let us discuss about the collisions present in a system. Whenever we say about collisions, see why chemical reactions occur, why we get the products. If somebody asks you this thing, that why chemical reaction occurs and why we get the product, always remember chemical reactions are result of the collisions between the reactant molecules, and that is why we get the products. Okay, suppose we are having A2 and B2 and our desirable product is AB. Now this A2 will collide with B2, then only we'll get AB. Now here three type of collisions may occur. One is A is colliding with AC. Basically, the thing is, suppose there are 10 A2 molecules, 10 B2 molecules present inside a room. Okay, you have locked the system. So now they're moving haphazardly or just randomly inside the room. So what will happen? There may be three type of collisions. One, A2 is colliding with A2. You will get no product. Again, B2 is colliding with B2. Again, you will get no product. Third one is A2 will be colliding with B2, then only you will get product. Okay, so collisions may be either effective or ineffective, but here in this particular case the thing is different. Effective collision only results in products, ineffective collision doesn't count. Okay, but here the discussion about collisions is for something else. What is the thing? It is perfectly elastic or perfectly inelastic collision. Now, what is perfectly elastic collision? If the energy before and after collision remains conserved, then it is called perfectly elastic collision. Okay. So what is being said here? In an ideal gas, all the collisions between molecules or atoms are perfectly elastic. Why? Because the interaction between the molecules uh, has not been considered. Okay. So it is said that in an ideal gas, molecules move so fast that they are very much different in terms of position with each other, so they do not interact at all. This is not feasible actually. In case of real gas, they have negligible intermolecular attractive forces. Ideal gases do not exist naturally. See, I told you it is not feasible, right? No, it is not. As it is not feasible, so that's why they are saying like this. However, gases behave most ideally at high temperature and low pressure condition. Yes, at low pressure, gases are very much stable because they are approaching towards liquid. Okay, low pressure and high temperature. Sorry. They are approaching towards gases, right? Low pressure and high temperature. Reverse is applicable for liquid. The entire internal energy in ideal gas is the form of kinetic energy of the particles, and any change in internal energy results in change in temperature. So, if the internal energy of a particle changes, then what will happen? It will change the temperature of the system. An isothermal process is a change in the system such that the temperature remains constant. In other words, delta T for an isothermal process is 0. Now, this is something we know very well. Okay. Now let us come for free expansion. Free expansion of a gas occurs when it is subjected to expansion in vacuum. That is P external is 0. But this is also very important. Whenever gas is expanding, if we are doing so in vacuum, then what will happen? The P external will be 0. During free expansion of an ideal gas, work done is 0 and irreversible. And it will be a irreversible or reversible process. Yes, in free expansion as P external is 0, work done W is equal to PdV, right? Now, if P is 0, then the total work done will be 0. That's it, right? Now, it is known that change in internal energy of a system is given by delta U equals to Q plus W. From where this is coming? Just tingle your brain a little bit, you will get the answer. Delta U equals to Q plus W. This is coming from none other than the first law of thermodynamics, okay, where delta U represents change in internal energy, Q is heat given by the system, W is work done on the system. Depending upon the type of processes, it can be written in different ways. Yes, agreed. So what we are having next? If work is done in vacuum, W is equal to P external dV. Now P external is 0, therefore, and delta V is also 0, therefore this particular thing happens. See, if it is in vacuum, so P external is equal to 0. So this total part becomes 0. So W is equal to delta equals to Q. We are getting, right? Now QV implies that the heat is supplied at constant volume. Fine. When an ideal gas is subjected to isothermal expansion in vacuum, work done will be 0 as P external is 0. That is what we have been discussing. So delta U will be equal to 0 if Q is equal to 0, right? As we have already seen, the delta U is equal to Q. Okay. Now for isothermal reversible process, equation 1 can be expressed as, well, there is no 1, this one will be 1, right? Isothermal reversible change for this particular thing, W is equal to P external Vf minus Vi. Now F is final and I is initial, you know that. For isothermal change, W equals to minus nRT ln Vf by Vi. This is something we are going to derive, or this is the same equation in form of log. Okay. And for adiabatic change, Q is equal to delta U is equal to W adiabatic, right? Now here again I'm saying this is the equation that we are going to derive in the next slides. Okay, let's see. Right. So first let us try to understand what the diagram says. As you can see, this is a three-phase picture. The diagram is saying there are two conditions, one is Vi, another is Vf. Okay, and as you can see, initially the place inside the this particular piston, right here, this gray colored thing, this is the piston. Okay, here also this gray colored thing is the piston, right? Now inside whatever pressure we are having, that is P internal, and outside we can see P external. Okay, now as you people can see, if we say this is image number 1 and this is image number 2, then it is clearly implied from the images. Then in the first case volume was less, Vi is less since P external is greater. In the second phase Vf is more since P external is less or P internal is greater. That means here whatever we are seeing is nothing but expansion of an ideal gas. Okay, now if we consider that this occurs under isothermal system, now let us see what we are getting and how we are going to do this. Okay, so W is equal to minus PdV V1 to V2. Okay, this particular, here I and F are not taken, here 1 and 2 are taken. So Vi is V1, V2 is Vf. Okay, now by ideal gas equation we know that PV is equal to nRT, yes, or P is equal to nRT by V, yes. Now this particular P we are having, we will substitute the value of nRT by V here. W is equal to minus V1 to V2 nRT by V dV. Okay, fine. Now what we will do, we will nRT, we will take this particular thing out. See, it is taken out. Why? Because they will not be derivated. dV and V will be derivated. So we are having dV by V, V2, V1. This is the limit. Okay. Now if we integrate this dV by V, that means 1 by V dV under the limits of V1 and V2, we get ln V under the limit V1 and V2, right? Now ln, this limit is incorporated like this, that ln V2 minus ln V1, or we can write this one minus nRT ln V2 by V1. Okay, now whenever ln is converted to log, we need to multiply with 2.303. So our equation will become W is equal to minus 2.303 nRT log V2 by V1, right? Okay, it is written ln is equal to 2.303. Fine, right? This is the expression that actually we want to derive. Okay, just I'm clearing the drawings and let us screen it out. This is the expression that we are going to find out. In terms of pressure, what we people can do, we know from our knowledge of Boyle's law that P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2, therefore V2 by V1 is equal to P1 by P2. In other sense, we can write, in place of V2 by V1, we can write P1 by P2. So this is another expression that we are having in terms of pressure. So we are having two particular expressions, one in terms of volume, another in terms of pressure, right? So this is the expression of work done in isothermal reversible expansion of an ideal gas. Okay, now this derivation is not new to us. We have already done this type of derivation several times. Okay, but the fact is we need to remember how the derivation is being done, and we need to discuss what type of numericals can come from this particular derivation. Okay, now what type of numericals can come? It may be asked that calculate the work done for a system if no, not like that. Suppose we have 2 moles of an ideal gas which at 20 degrees Celsius expands from a volume of 10 liter to 15 liter. Okay, calculate the work done in this process. Then what we are going to do, let us write the credentials that I told you. That let us write it here. Calculate the work done when 2 moles of an ideal gas, sorry, 2 moles of an ideal gas expands let it be like this, expands from a volume of say 5 liter to 8 liter at 25 degree Celsius, right? Okay, calculate W. If this type of question comes, what we are going to do? If this type of question comes, what we are going to do? Tell me. It's quite an easy question. How we can do the answer? We are having our expression. What we will write? We will write W is equal to minus 2.303. Now here N means 2, RT 8.314 into sorry, here we need to write 1 into, then T is 25 plus 273 is 298, right? Log, then what we are having, let us write it here. What we are having, log V2 means, what is V2 here? V2 is 8 divided by 5. Okay, now in the next line, what we need to do? Answer is quite simple. First of all, we need to formulate the result for this log. Okay, once this log value is coming, just we need to multiply this part and we need to formulate the answer. Okay, as simple as that. You will get W. Also, this type of questions may come where initial or final volume is asked to be found, where T is asked, right? So it is not a big deal. If all the parameters are given, only one is asked, then definitely we can answer. Okay, right? So this was regarding this particular topic. So in this lecture, we have seen basically 2 different things which are very important in turn. First one being the reversible and irreversible process, which is very important and which needs to be understood carefully, that under what condition the reversible and irreversible process will occur, and what is the basic reality between these two. After that, we have seen how much work has been done for isothermal reversible expansion of ideal gas. Now we have discussed the theory in detail. After that, we have seen the image which implies this particular thing, and lastly we have seen the derivation, how this reaction, how this formula actually is being derived, and we have come across with these 2 formulas, right, depending on our calculation. Okay, furthermore we have seen simple numerical, what type of numerical can be done using this particular formula. Okay, so this was all about for this particular lecture, which is lecture number 11. We'll see again in lecture number 12, which again will be something on thermodynamics. So till then, stay safe and study and do practice of this particular things, right? We'll meet in the next lecture. Thank you.